Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take that stack of sources you've got and, well, we distill it right down to the essential knowledge you need to get informed. And fast.
And today we're tackling a big one. It's language acquisition and specifically mastering spoken English. For so many people, it's just a grind, grammar drills, flashcards.
Oh, absolutely. And textbook phrases that you know for a fact nobody actually says in real life.
Exactly.
But the sources you brought in today, these are excerpts that lay out the framework from Abdullah Al-Sultan. They present a really refreshing approach. The whole idea is, what if learning English felt less like studying and more like just watching a movie you love?
That's the core of it. You're
Yeah.
diving into a systematic method called the shadowing method. And the material really argues that this is like the ultimate shortcut to fluency.
A shortcut? How so?
Because it's designed to bypass all that mental gymnastics of translating your head and trying to remember grammar rules.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to get into the nuts and bolts of the shadowing method. We need to define what it actually is, understand the science behind why it works so well.
Right, the why is critical.
And then, most importantly, give you the practical steps to turn your favorite show into, well, daily speaking practice, something you can start tomorrow.
Let's jump in.
So we've got the term shadowing method, but what does that actually mean in practice? If you're sitting down to do it, how is this really different from just, repeating a phrase you hear on an audio track?
The entire difference is in the timing. That's it. The shadowing method requires you to do three things simultaneously. You have to listen, repeat, and speak all at the same time.
Wait, at the same time?
At the exact same time. You're using real dialogue from a movie scene or a clip.
So that's the aha moment right there, because traditional practice is always listen, pause, then repeat. You're saying this method completely gets rid of that pause.
It destroys the pause. The forces actually have a great quote for this. They say, speak with the movie, not after it. You're basically becoming an echo, just a split second behind.
So you're not giving your brain time to translate or analyze the grammar?
None. You're just replicating the sound pattern instantly. It's like you're turning yourself into an organic, real-time repeater. It sounds really challenging.
It does sound incredibly challenging.
It is, but that's why it works. The goal here is pretty ambitious. It's to train yourself to speak just like native speakers do. You're not chasing words, you're chasing the music of the language.
Okay, so that definition brings us to the next big question. Why is that simultaneous action so powerful? Why is speaking with the audio so much better than speaking after it?
This gets into the core cognitive benefits. See, traditional methods make you lean really heavily on your working memory, on that analytical part of your brain.
Right.
But when you force yourself to reproduce the sound at the same time, you engage something called the phonological loop.
The phonological loop? Okay, that sounds pretty technical. Break that down for us.
It is, but it's really the key. It's the part of your brain that processes and holds on to speech sounds for a moment. When you shadow, you're forcing this super efficient feedback mechanism. Your ear hears the sound and your tongue immediately tries to make it.
So you're strengthening the connection between hearing and speaking.
That's it. The method is explicitly designed to train your ear and your tongue together. You're bypassing that slow, conscious step of translation.
So it's more than just muscle memory for your mouth. You're actually training the neural pathways to process speech at native speed.
Exactly. When you get rid of that analytical pause, you stop trying to translate into your native language first. You just treat the English sound as a whole unit, which is, that's the foundation of fluency.
Okay, but here's a question. If I'm just focused on speed and copying sounds, what stops me from just cementing my own bad habits? Like, if I always mispronounce a certain word, won't I just be practicing it the wrong way over and over?
That is a fantastic and really critical question. The source material talks about this. The key is focused repetition on very short, manageable clips.
Okay.
Because you are constantly hearing the correct model right as you're speaking, you get instant auditory feedback. Your brain immediately notices the mismatch. If you shadow a 60-second clip 5 times, you're hearing the correct pronunciation of that tricky word maybe 30 times in just a few minutes.
So your mistake doesn't even have time to settle in because the correct version is just constantly overriding it.
Precisely. And this intense training really helps with something called prosody.
Prosody.
Yeah, it's the rhythm, the stress, the intonation of a language. It's the music. Textbooks are terrible at teaching this, but shadowing just immerses you in it instantly.
And that focus on prosody, that's a huge efficiency gain for our listener. So what are the specific skills we're talking about improving here?
The material is really clear on this. Through this kind of practice, you naturally improve your pronunciation, your rhythm, your fluency, and even your listening skills. And the best part is, this all happens, and I'm quoting here, naturally, without memorizing grammar rules.
That's the dream, right? Gaining fluency just by engaging with something you actually enjoy instead of, drilling verb charts.
It really is. You're not learning rules. You're internalizing the structure by sound and by feel.
That brings us to the material itself. Why movies? Why is repeating real dialogue so much better than using those clean, perfectly spoken phrases you find in language textbooks?
Because textbooks, I mean, they're fine for vocabulary, but they fail completely at capturing how English is actually spoken. They strip out all the messy parts, the contractions, the slang.
And most importantly,
They omit what's called connected speech.
connected speech. Give us an example of how that trips a learner up.
Okay, so when native speakers talk fast, words just kind of melt together. Think about going to. Nobody says going to.
To say gonna.
They say gonna or did you, often becomes did you. A learner might know the words did and you perfectly, but when they hear did you at full speed, their brain just hears noise.
Oh, we've all had that experience. You understand every single word on paper, but when someone says the sentence fast, it's just one big, unrecognizable sound.
That is the exact gap that textbook learning creates. Movies expose you to all of that authentic blending and rhythm. When you shadow, you're not trying to say, did you go? You're forced to reproduce the sound, did you go? And that's what builds real confidence.
That makes so much sense. The confidence comes from knowing you're practicing the language as it's actually used, not some sterile, lab-grown version of it.
Absolutely. And the sources say that when you do this, movies stop being just passive entertainment. They become one of your most powerful tools for improving your English.
What about the risk of picking up a weird accent, though? I mean, if I only shadow a character from, say, a historical drama, am I going to sound super formal? Or if I pick someone with a really thick regional accent?
That's a really valid concern. And the key here is selection. The method advises you to choose material where the speakers have pretty clear articulation. A standard American or a British English, whatever your goal is.
So you need to use a filter.
Right. If a character has a very distinct niche dialect, that's great for listening practice, but maybe not the best for your primary shadowing practice. You want a model you can use anywhere.
Got it. So we've defined the method, we know the mechanics of why it works, and we know why real dialogue is king. Let's get practical. For the listener at home who's thinking, okay, I want to try this, how do they actually start?
This is where it gets really actionable. You don't need any fancy software. You just need a movie or a show you like and the discipline to follow a pretty specific routine.
Okay, give us that routine. How do you take a 2-hour movie and turn it into a focused, 15-minute practice session?
It's all about breaking it down into tiny, high-intensity chunks. The sources recommend that you pick a scene that's no longer than 60 seconds.
60 seconds, that's it.
That's it. It's crucial because it lets you repeat the same material over and over in one session without getting burned out. It keeps your brain locked in. And the practice itself happens in 3 distinct phases.
Okay, phase 1.
Phase 1 is listen only. You just play the 60-second clip maybe 3 times. Don't try to speak. Just listen.
Ooh.
Focus on the rhythm, the meaning. You're just priming your ear.
Priming the ear. I like that. What's next?
Phase 2 is subtitled shadowing. Now, you start the simultaneous speaking, but you have the subtitles on.
In English or your native language?
It depends on your level. You could start with your native language to connect sound to meaning, but you want to move to English subtitles pretty quickly. You do this maybe 5 to 10 times, and each time you try to get a little closer to the actor's speed.
So the subtitles are like a safety net. You're not just repeating sounds you don't understand.
Exactly. They connect the sound to the meaning.
Yeah.
But the real magic happens in the last phase. Here's phase 3, blind shadowing. This is the final boss. You turn off all the subtitles. Now it's just you and the sound. You're focusing only on matching the speed, the prosody, the tone. This is what really forces that ear-tongue connection to become automatic.
Wow. And if you can do that, if you can blind shadow a 60-second clip perfectly, you've truly internalized that piece of the language.
You really have. And this whole method scales. A beginner might just focus on capturing the general rhythm, even if they miss some words. An advanced learner is aiming for perfect accent replication. It works for everyone.
So let's wrap this up. We've done a deep dive into the shadowing method, and it seems like the big takeaway is that learning a language doesn't have to be a chore.
The major insight is that it can be engaging and incredibly practical. You now have a structured shortcut to improving your pronunciation, your fluency, and your listening, all by focusing on real dialogue instead of boring grammar rules.
It's just a much more efficient way to learn, really. It feels like you're working with your brain's natural ability to process sound, not against it.
Absolutely. You're building functional automatic confidence that you can actually use in a real conversation.
Okay, so here's the final thought for you to take away from this deep dive. Think about one of your favorite movies, maybe one you've already seen 10 times and you know by heart. Which scene from that movie will be the first one you use for this three-phase shadowing practice tomorrow? Just pick one 60-second clip and see how fast your tongue can keep up.